G'day, welcome to this ADF Mobile Insider presentation. My name's Chris Muir, I'm an ADF Product Manager for Oracle Corporation. Now the other day I was sitting in my office and I received an SMS on my phone, and the SMS was a courier coming to deliver me a package. And this was a really useful little SMS because, like you, I'm missing couriers all the time. They come and deliver packages, I miss them, they take the package back, they leave me a card, I have to ring them up, they come out and deliver again, and I miss them again. So it's really useful at my home, where I can't often hear people knocking on the front door, to get an SMS to say, hey, courier says I'm going to be there very soon, please be at the front door to pick up your package. Now I thanked the courier when he delivered the actual package, and I said, that was really courteous little SMS there. I bet you get a lot more customers picking up their packages then. And he said, well, no. In fact, I don't actually send out the SMS at all. Our courier application on our tablet, when he said he was at the previous customer, he marks that package as completed or delivered. The next customer, me in that case, actually gets sent an automatic SMS from his mobile to say that he's on his way to deliver the actual package. Now this little example, this very simple little example, shows you a fantastic integration of the device features on the mobile device, or the tablet device in this case, with the application, the courier's application. It both increases the productivity of the courier and basically cuts a lot of costs of the courier because they're not going backwards and forwards between customer sites, but it also radically increases the customer satisfaction. And this is something a lot of enterprises and corporations and businesses will want to do. So, in this ADF Insider Mobile presentation today, I'd like to talk about integrating SMS services into your ADF Mobile applications. Basically, to use all the device features, see how easy it is, and then ultimately to create a great little application that'll keep your staff productive, but also keep customers productive. As such, what we'll cover in this in-depth presentation today is the three different ways you can make use of the mobile device's SMS services, that being through the data control palette, Java APIs, or the JavaScript APIs. In addition, we'll discuss some extensions developers might like to pursue in writing a complete SMS solution, and we'll discuss some limitations in testing SMS services on the iOS simulator and Android emulator. Before we undertake this deep dive into SMS services, I need to highlight the fact that this presentation was published when ADF Mobile version 1 was the current release, specifically for JDeveloper 11.1.230. By the time you view this presentation, there may be later releases of ADF Mobile that might have resulted in changes to some of the content I'm going to discuss today, in particular the APIs. Please take time to consult the latest ADF Mobile documentation via this bit.ly link to ensure you have the latest information at hand. So returning to the content at hand, first let's cover off the overall architecture picture of how ADF Mobile integrates with the device services such as email, SMS, the camera, and so on your device. This picture shows the common architecture diagram for the ADF Mobile, and specifically in red the overall JVM container that ADF Mobile runs on your iOS or Android devices. In order for the ADF Mobile application to connect and communicate with the device services, ADF Mobile makes use of PhoneGap, highlighted here in blue, providing those services. PhoneGap, also known as Apache Cordova, provides the APIs under the covers that ADF Mobile makes use of to access your phone or tablet's email, SMS, camera, GPS and contact services. It's worthwhile noting though, ADF Mobile abstracts away from the underlying PhoneGap solutions and wraps ADF APIs around those PhoneGap services. Underneath, it is indeed PhoneGap that it is used, but the APIs do abstract from this. As such, not only is Oracle documentation a valid place to look up information on how to use these services, so is the PhoneGap or Cordova documentation. In particular, this external documentation includes useful information on the capabilities and limitations of the different devices you're likely to deploy to. Overall, ADF Mobile through PhoneGap provides a wide range of services you can make use of on your phone or tablet, such as SMS services that we're going to discuss today. In addition, ADF Mobile provides multiple different mechanisms for developers to make use of those facilities, some of which are available for all services and some are limited to particular mechanisms only. Of those mechanisms, there's essentially four. The first is the data control palette, which is one of the main productivity boosters of the JDeveloper IDE. Through a device data control and associated methods, this allows developers to literally drag and drop the associated device surfaces such as SMS onto an ADF Mobile AMX page, and JDeveloper will wire up the page and components such that there is little programming required on the developer's part. The second mechanism is EL, or expression language. Through EL, an explicit device scope object is available to allow developers to query the device services. For example, for SMS services, it might be useful to enable or disable the SMS button based on the network status. If you don't have a 3G connection, you cannot actually send out an SMS. Alternatively to these mechanisms, if the developer wants more control over the service integration, via a Java managed bean in their AMX pages, there is also a Java API that is available that provides programmatic access to these services. As you can see in this brief example, the Device Manager singleton accessed via the Device Manager factory provides a send SMS method that we can call. Finally, if you decide to create local HTML pages in your ADF mobile application over AMX pages, there is also a JavaScript API available to you for sending SMSs too. With all that in mind, let me now demonstrate how to build an ADF mobile application that integrates SMS through the data control palette in an AMX page. So here we have JDeveloper 11.1.2.3.0, where I've already created an ADF mobile workspace called SMS Demo. Within the features file, I've already created a feature called Send SMS, which is of the type a single ADF mobile AMX page called Send a Message. If we have a look at that page, there's not much to it at the moment. It's basically an empty page containing an output text called header, and you can see the resulting render on the right hand side. Now, the magic of what we want to demonstrate here is in the data control palette, which we can see down here in the bottom left. In the data control palette, it has the device features data control, and expanding that, we can see the send SMS method that we're interested in presenting in this particular presentation today. Now, the beauty of the data control palette is literally we can drag and drop that method into a page, and JDeveloper will give us some options for how we want to wire up the components to call that send SMS method. Now, I can pick the ADF mobile parameter form, and this will actually create on the screen two input text controls for the user to enter a to. Now for an SMS, this is actually going to be a phone number, so a to field, or the body, which is actually the body of the SMS message. The alternative here is we could have dragged the send SMS method in and created a command button, and in this case, rather than wiring up controls on the screen for the user to enter the to and body fields, we could, as example, just hard code those values. But in purpose of the demonstration, it's more useful for us to provide those fields when I actually run this on the simulator, so we'll go back to the previous option. So let's drop an ADF mobile parameter form in. Let's take them both as both parameters as input text controls. Click OK, and the result here is you can see in the source code we have two input text controls, one binding to the to field, one binding to the body field, and a command button with a send SMS label or a text label calling the action listener called send SMS. What's that? If we go behind the scenes and we click on the bindings tab, we can see in the relating page def for this particular page that the two fields are catered for plus the send SMS method, and if we click the edit button you can see that they're bound, the actual two parameters are bound back to these two other attributes that we've created in the page. Now, via the magic of having pre-recorded this demo, I've actually already deployed the application to the iOS simulator and Android emulator. So let's have a look at the results. In the iOS simulator, the end application, we can now see the two fields where the user can type in a phone number and a body message and attempt to send the SMS. Now watch what happens. Oh, we can't do it. Now why is that? Now that's not actually something to do with our application. It just happens to be a limitation with the iOS simulator. It doesn't allow you to send SMSs because it's not a real device, it's not a real phone. Alternatively, let's have a look at what the Android emulator does. Now in the Android emulator, I'll just start the application. Once the application comes up, we see the same fields, so let's just follow the same process through. And now when we press the Send SMS button, and then this is distinctly different from the iOS simulator, we actually invoke the SMS screen of the Android emulator. But when we attempt to send the SMS, okay, it sends it, but in reality no message goes anywhere. So the emulator, the Android emulator, is a little different here than that it does actually invoke the SMS facilities, but it doesn't actually allow you to send anything else, where the iOS simulator is a little bit more limited in that aspect. But notice about the Android emulator one limitation, that even though we've already filled out the phone number and the body, or the two in the body fields, we still have to go through the SMS page of the actual device itself. And this will actually be true of the running applications both on iOS and Android. This is one of the limitations of the approach that we're taking here. But in the end, we've given the user the ability to send SMSs. Now, rather than using the data control palette to call the send SMS features on your mobile tablet device, what we want to look at now is calling those same features, but doing it via the Java APIs in one of your Java beans, called from a button on your page. So here we return to JDeveloper 11.1230, where in the features file we've created a new feature called Send SMS via Java. It contains a single AMX page called Send a Message via Java.amx. And we can see the contents of that here. Not much to it. Now what we want to do in this page is wire up a button to call a bean, a Java bean behind the scenes, to call the Java API to call the SMS services. So the very first thing I'm going to do is drag in a button, okay, from the component palette, change the label, and then in the property inspector for that button, go to the behavior, to the action listener, edit, and create a managed bean, which will contain the function that will actually call the SMS API for us. I'm going to create a new bean called my bean. It's going to exist in view scope, and inside that it's going to have a method called send SMS. As a result, you can see there is now a bean behind the scenes called mybean.java. And before we have a look at that, we'll just look in the ADF Mobile config file, which is the task flow file for this particular page. If we go to the overview node, the managed bean, you can see the managed bean has been configured for us, and as a result, we can see that there's my bean and the send SMS method, where we're going to add our code to actually call the APIs to call the send SMS method in turn. In order to call the underlying device features, ADF Mobile provides the oracle.adf.model.datacontrols.device.device-manager singleton, and this, amongst many different methods, has a method called sendSMS with two parameters, both strings, to and body, for sending out SMSs programmatically from your own Java beans. One comment to make, which we haven't said at this point, is if you want to send an SMS out to multiple recipients, what you can do is, in the to field, add all their phone numbers, comma delimited, and the API will take care of sending an SMS to each recipient in turn. So returning to our Java bean example, here we have the myBean class that we've actually configured as a Java bean, and inside of that we can see the send SMS method, which on line 5 calls the device manager factory.getDeviceManager method to return the singleton device manager. Once you have access to the device manager, you can, as in this example, just effectively declare your to and body strings, put in the values that you want, and pass those to device.sendSMS with the appropriate parameter values. Finally, in this presentation today, in terms of calling the SMS services, what we're going to now look at is using the JavaScript APIs to call the SMS service from a local HTML page embedded in our ADF mobile application. Again, returning to JDeveloper 11.1.2.3.0. This time in the feature file, I've created a feature called Send SMS via JavaScript. Now, it's a little different from the previous options because it is not an AMX-based feature. It is actually a local HTML-based feature, and you can see the resulting HTML page here. Send a message via JavaScript.html. And if we switch over to that page, here you can see the rudimentary HTML code at this point. So what we're looking at here is that HTML page with the example fully fledged out. And what we can see initially in the HTML page is via the script tags, we're actually loading in 4 JavaScript libraries, and all 4 of these are necessary in order to call the Send SMS API that we're just about to look at. So that is on line 3, the PhoneGap API, line 5, the ADF EL library, line 7, the jQuery library, and finally on line 9 and line 10, the ADF MF device integration library. In the core body of the page, there is a button with the label Send SMS that calls the Send SMS function that we've defined on line 12. And on line 13, we can finally see the call to the associated API, adf.mf.api.sendSMS, and that will actually send out the SMS as we saw in the previous examples. Of course, you can also see here the to field and the body field, and the same rules apply for the parameters. If you want to send out the SMS to multiple recipients, in the to field, simply expand that string with a comma delimited number of phone numbers that you want to send the body message out to. Let's now just talk about some extensions you might want to make to your program when working with the SMS features programmatically. 3 potential extensions you might want to make with your Java beans when you're just about to call that send SMS method is, first of all, call the device manager .getNetworkStatus method. That method returns the current status of the connectivity of the device to either Wi-Fi or 3G. And in particular with SMS services, you do need a 3G or a 4G connection, I guess, in order to send out an SMS. So if the user attempts to send an SMS, maybe you want to block that by checking first the network status. Another addition is, well, you saw in the demonstrations that I actually had to type in the actual phone number of who I wanted to send the SMS. And you can imagine typing on a mobile device is very cumbersome for users. So if you happen to know the name of the person you're going to send the SMS to on behalf of the user, you could use the device manager.findContact method to look up the phone number of that particular person, assuming it's in the address book on that device, but look up the phone number and pre-populate that for the user in this case. Finally, if something goes wrong, the ADF Mobile framework has the oracle.adfmf.framework.exception.adf exception, which you can wrap in a try and catch block, well, in fact I should say catch in a try and catch block when calling send SMS to handle any errors that are raised by the device. Finally, let's talk about some limitations that you're going to hit in using the Send SMS features. One of the main limitations you're going to find with the Send SMS feature, and it's the same of the Send Email facility, is that you cannot send SMSs and emails directly. You always need to go through the intermediary screen of the device. So very early on with the data control palette, when we created a screen with the to and body fields for the send SMS, this really doesn't gel out very well from a user experience point of view, because once you hit the user hits the send SMS button there, it then invokes another screen where they've got to hit send SMS as well. What I would probably do there instead is replace that with the programmatic API, where you may pre-populate some of those fields for the user, but then directly invoke the SMS facility on the device. Another limitation we hit, but it's not really a production one when you actually deploy to the device, is that of when you deploy to the simulators and emulators. As we saw on the iOS simulator, it will not actually allow you to invoke the SMS facility and send SMSs out at all. So you can't actually test is your application working. From the Android emulator perspective, it does invoke the actual device's send SMS screen, but again, it doesn't actually get beyond that point. So the only way to really test this is to test this on a device. And when you do enough mobile programming and you read enough mobile documentation anyway, the best practice out there is always to do testing at some point on the devices to make sure that your programs are working correctly. So in summary of this presentation today, just as a reminder, for the device services feature integration is under the cover that JDeveloper and ADF Mobile, I should say, uses PhoneGap and the Cordova libraries to do this. As we also saw that there is a number of different ways to access these device features provided by ADF Mobile, that being the data control palette and Java code for AMX pages and the JavaScript APIs for our local HTML pages. In conjunction, once we had a look at those actual features, we discovered that when we were testing these features, that the simulators and emulators don't necessarily provide all the facilities to test the full cycle of sending out SMSs. So you really do need to test these features on a real device to make sure that your application is working correctly.